Hello and welcome to my very first car review in GT7, and what better way of getting back into these reviews after such a long hiatus from reviewing cars in games than by featuring a returning legend, the Alfa 155 DTM touring car, or the V6 Ti as it's technically called in the game. And for those of you who are new to the channel, maybe this is my first video that you've watched, if you do enjoy car review kind of content, you should definitely check out my Beards and Cars series, because not only do I review cars in racing games, I review real cars as well, which puts me in a relatively unique position among channels to know exactly how good many of these cars should feel and how authentic they feel to real life. Now, in terms of this particular car, you of course cannot find it in the main dealership. As far as I know, you won't find it in the used dealership, but that remains to be seen because of course that does rotate over time. What I can tell you though is that you will find this in the quote-unquote high rollers dealership, in effect towards the right end of the map. Now, for brand new players, you will need to level up and unlock that dealership, but when this one is available, the price is $800,000. Now, I say that tentatively because the whole point of that dealership is that the prices change in effect in real time. So there's a very real chance that that price could actually change. Now, in terms of the spec that you get, the stock performance points is 673.89. I do find the 0.89 or point whatever a little bit weird in this game, to be honest. Seems a little bit unnecessary, but 673, or you could say 674 stock. So it's relatively high, and it's high in particular for a Group 4 car, which is what it is. When I first saw that news, I thought that was kind of crazy. It doesn't really make sense to have this four-wheel drive, 400 horsepower icon of touring car racing, which kind of used to be OP, as many of these were, the Astra touring car, the CLK DTM from back in the older Gran Turismo games. Have they neutered it? What's going on there? Why is it in Group 4? Well, simply put, because times change, aerodynamics, tyre technology, etc., and cars do get quicker even though they're not as exciting on paper. So it's actually perfectly placed in Group 4. The PP level is high, which is unfortunate, but of course that's mainly due to the all-wheel drive, or technically four-wheel drive because it's permanent in this car. Straight line performance though is not the best thing around. There are some other Group 4 cars which can outrun it. You're looking at around 150 miles an hour flat out, and again that's stock of course. In terms of upgrades, not a huge amount that you can do to it, which I don't actually think is a bad thing. I do sort of like the approach that Gran Turismo 7 is taking when it comes to tuning race cars, because in real life, most people, generally, unless you're Ken Block maybe, aren't going to buy a legendary race car and slap a twin turbo on it. So as fun as it is, I understand why they've moved away from that. I do miss it, I will be completely honest, but I get why they've done it. Now, in terms of what this car can do on the track, it's very, very nicely balanced, to a point. But then, just like any four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive car, it tends to suddenly snap. Now, with four-wheel drive, in this case, with the downforce, with the grip, with it being a race-prepared vehicle, it doesn't go absolutely nuts and suddenly spin out, but you will find that on the limit, or if you maybe overcook it into a corner, you'll get quite a lot of understeer on the exit of the corner in particular, and you'll end up running quite wide. Oversteer isn't really an issue from what I've found, so you're not going to be drifting around all the time. It's not a slippery car by any stretch, and again, that's running stock settings, so you could make it even better technically. In terms of the aforementioned power, 413 is about what you'd expect from this kind of category. The weight is pretty good. It weighs barely over a metric ton, 1,010 kilos, which I believe is something like 2,400 pounds, I believe a ton is in the States. And of course, it's also naturally aspirated. So it's a lot of power for a naturally aspirated engine, but it's a product of its time. So with that in mind, the real question is it worth paying that extra premium, the clearly historic collector's piece premium, to get this car at all? Or are you better off just getting a main dealership Group 4 car from McLaren, Bugatti, pretty much any of the other manufacturers you'll see me overtaking in this event? Is this car actually worth it? Well, I would say yes and no. Yes, if this is your first ever Gran Turismo experience, I think there's a lot to love. This is more one of those occasions, funnily enough, where those of us who have been playing Gran Turismo for longer will be much more likely to be disappointed by the car, because it really did used to be a force to be reckoned with. Not like the best thing ever, but it was really, really good. As I said before, it's nowhere near that dominant. In Group 4, it is good, but the point level being quite high does mean that you'll end up having to lose some of that power, add a little bit of ballast, etc. And of course that can change everything. The top end speed does let it down. It does get sluggish at around 150 stock at least, so that's something you'll have to bear in mind on tracks which do require more of that. Even here on the Nürburgring, you've got that super long straight toward the end and some high speed sections where some other Group 4s, especially driven by real players, will be able to pull away from you. So from a historic perspective, absolutely it's worth it. And one of the things I like about it is it's not too expensive. 800,000 is pretty reasonable, but again, as I said earlier on, that could change over time. Ultimately, it's an essential collector's piece, and it definitely is a collector's piece, and I love this fact about the car, which you can use. It's not some, little old Pebble Beach classic that's, lovely to own or to collect, but kind of useless for racing. No, this car was a force to be reckoned with, and it can still kick it with modern race cars as well. So ultimately my verdict is yes, it is worth buying. If you're just starting out in the game, wait a little bit and you'll be able to buy the car, so maybe save up some credits if you want one. And aside from that, it remains to be seen if there does end up being any other kind of way that we can get this car. There isn't, at least that I've found so far, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, like I said, if you want to check out more reviews within Gran Turismo and other games and real life as well, of course follow the channel for more of that, and until next time I'll see you then. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.